All right, welcome one and all. Jeff Sharon, Bryson Turner, Andrew Sagona joining us. You know him as Dan Frijoles on UCF Twitter. And this is UCF Big 12 Rockin' Eve right here on the KnightShift podcast. We're so glad we're actually seeing some people kind of trickling in. We'll start a little slowly to allow everyone to catch up. But yeah, we are underway for this historic night in UCF athletics history. We are now just, according to my clock, an hour and 26 minutes and change from UCF officially joining the Big 12 Conference. Midnight Eastern tonight, it becomes official. And it's been a long time coming. We got a lot to talk about. This is not going to be overly produced, first of all, for everybody. We're just going to be here talking about the last 10 years of UCF, really going back even further than that. As UCF is on the verge of joining a power conference, a dream of this program for the last almost 30 years, going back to the 90s and Gene McDowell, through the Mike Kruzak, George O'Leary era, and up through now. And there have been some false starts. There have been some close calls, some near misses, even with the Big 12 back in 2016. But now, at long last, the time has come, and UCF will be a power conference team. Let's go ahead and this will just be a free flowing conversation with all of us. We'll have a few people from Black and Gold Banneret popping in. Want to thank all those for dropping in on the comments. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and our Twitter account, which is UCF Banneret _SBN. So if you want to send questions to us, we'll ask you questions. Send them all our way. If you got some good ones, we'll drop them in there. We'll put them up. We'll put them up on our on the banner here, and we'll answer them, because this is a big night for everybody, and I'm so glad that we get to share this moment with all of you, and that we all get to share this moment together. Booms for everybody out on YouTube. I appreciate it, man. Andrew, first, you're new. This is your first appearance with us. We know you as Dan Frijoles on Twitter. Give us a little bit more about some of the stuff you do with college football and following not just UCF, but other schools around the country.
Sure. Well, as you can see on the screen, my real name is Andrew Sagona. Dan Frijoles is my tag on pretty much anywhere in the internet. As you can see also there, I am a writer, a journalist, what have you, for Reddit CFB. And up until recently, I've been just doing South Florida because I was living in the Miami area. But I recently moved back to Orlando, thankfully. And, I'm hoping to cover some UCF games this year. I already covered the Hula Bowl over at the Bounce House. So predominantly, since I was in South Florida, so I covered the national championship game a few years ago, the Orange Bowl, and mostly FIU, but an occasional FAU game as well, which is coincidental since they're going to be taking our place in essence. So, but aside from that, predominantly I'm just a huge UCF fan. I graduated in 2014 with my degree in journalism and political science. And honestly, I really couldn't care less about college football before I went to UCF. But my first game was the 2010 conference championship game against SMU. And I was hooked after that. So that was kind of my start of my journey as becoming a UCF fan. And now I consider myself a loyal mafioso with the Twitter mafia. And actually, I'm not sure if you guys remember. Do you remember that whole pink party competition there was back in 2013?
Vaguely, I think so. Can you give me some more details on that? Jog my memory a little bit, because I'm getting old now.
So I think it was either 13 or 14. This was in the primordial days of the Twitter mafia. It wasn't even called it at that point. there was a competition of Victoria's Secret going out and getting votes for different schools across the country, and whoever won got a big concert extravaganza or whatever. So I remember that was sort of the first time that UCF came together collectively as some kind of a mob to win polls, and it just kind of expanded from there into the menace that we are today.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter was still, even though it had been around for some 5-6 years, man, it was still a pretty nascent thing. I remember 13 was where the football season in 2013 is really where it started to pick up. And I remember the intensity of the discussion during and just after the South Carolina game, and then that just kind of picked up from there. So, of course, I've seen you at UCF games before. We've interacted on social media a lot, as I'm sure a lot of us have, and I think for everybody who's been here, especially those of us who've been active UCF fans on social media, in particular Twitter, this is a big moment. It's one that a lot of us have been waiting for a long time. Of course, Bryson Turner is with us, as you know, or as all of you know from his time working with us at Black and Gold Banneret and on the now KnightShift podcast. And I want to start with kind of capturing, kind of how we're feeling about this right now. And shout out to Jessica Sheldon here, who pops in from our YouTube channel, says, "This is so surreal still. I can't believe we're going to the Big 12 officially in 84 minutes. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like, maybe this is what Stephen Leonard would call battered fan syndrome, but like, I still feel like we're going to, like, something's going to happen in the next hour and 20 minutes that's going to like pull the rug out from underneath us. Like, I mean, and this is me, being a UCF fan back from the, when I came to UCF in 2001, all the near misses that we've had. And to, but to know that it's real and it's happening is just, it's surreal. We've come, as Jessica says, we've come a long, long way. Bryson, let me start with you. I mean, you're kind of the youngin in around here, but you've lived in this area for a long time. You went to Haggerty High School. Did going back to your, when you first understood UCF and thought about, I want to get a younger fans protected. Did you ever think like this could happen?
Honestly, I was too young to understand how conference realignment worked. I think I didn't really grasp exactly how conference realignment really worked until really late in the game. Like I would argue around that 2016 time when we were flirting with the Big 12 before. That's kind of when it entered into my mind that wait, we can get in the Big 12. But thinking about where it was as far as younger, I remember, and I think I've said this before, but it's been a long time. My first time knowing what UCF was with a shirt that my dad wore. He worked before he worked at UCF for Aramark. He worked for Aramark at USF, and so he had this shirt that he bought while he was there. That was the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good was USF, the bad was UCF, and the ugly was Miami. I don't know why it was Miami, but that's what it was. So my first interaction with UCF was actually because I was originally a USF fan when I was like 6-7 years old. And that's because I didn't know any better at the time. My dad worked on campus. I was a stupid little child. I didn't know any better. So eventually when I moved but again, my college football allegiances weren't really set in stone yet, set in stone all the way, especially as far as a local team. My family's our SEC team, so I rooted for them because family. But once I moved to Orlando, 2013, I started seeing UCF beating Georgia in the Liberty Bowl didn't really help my opinion of them when I first moved to Orlando in the summer of 2009. But eventually, the 2013 team was actually what got me into kind of it as a UCF fan for a couple of reasons. The first one is I was actually able to go to a game. I was never able to do that with USF. One, because I was probably too young at the time, but also because of the proximity to the stadium and just being there. That stadium environment was something that I had never felt before. I still remember Terrell Troop's name being announced over the PA loudspeaker, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then South Carolina was here. South Carolina, that game, I remember that so well. And Blake Bortles went to Oviedo High School. He's from Oviedo, which is my hometown. Basically, I call Oviedo my hometown now. And so to see all of that happen with UCF and the success that UCF was seeing at the time, that's when I was just, they hooked me from there, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Nick Porcelli is going to join us here in just a second. You see him actually, he's out in the field actually as of right now. Andrew, I want to get you in here and I'll ask you the same questions. Did you ever think this would happen?
Well, kind of to Bryson's point, I didn't get into college football. I mean, I was 18, so I didn't grow up with college football. So the whole conference realignment sort of thing didn't really hit me, but I did sort of get an inkling a little bit when I heard UCF was going to the Big East. And me being the uninitiated, and to the point like, ooh, I've heard of the Big East. I know they have basketball at Madison Square Garden. I know this. This is a big deal. And then you see the UCF logo in Times Square, that infamous picture.
Yeah.
So at that point, I knew, this is a big deal that we're moving up. And as time went on, I realized, oh man, we're going to be on the outside looking in. But to more directly answer your question, I thought maybe it might happen eventually. I got my hopes up a little bit too much in 2016 when there was the whole possibility of realignment. I spent way too many hours checking Twitter and all the news to see how that was going and making fun of South Florida for the RIA search thing. But I feel in the same position as you. The only time I've celebrated this was when we got the announcement 2 years ago. And I'm not going to, there's the infamous picture.
There's the photo.
I remember that. And I remember being and I remember the whole debacle with Boise State and San Diego State coming. Oh, brother. But
yeah,
to your point, I am not celebrating until that clock says 12. I haven't been in as many situations as you of heartbreak, but I still feel like until something happens, until that clock strikes 12, anything could happen. So I thought it might happen eventually, but to see it happen so quickly is remarkable. In my short time being a fan, only 13 years at this point, we've been in 3 conferences, and that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really something. Shout out to my old friend Matt Brodsky. In 20 years, like he's in the club with me, man. Like my freshman year was our last year as a Division 1A independent. And you're right about the Big East. I think it's easy for everyone to kind of forget that. Like back in the early, really going back to the 90s, the Big East was considered the target conference for UCF because it made, at the time, this actually mattered, geographical sense. And when Miami left the Big East, the idea behind that was, okay, this might open up a spot for us. And that's why it was so heartbreaking for the fan base when USF got that invitation to the Big East in the early 2000s. I think it was 2003, I forget. and UCF didn't. And we ended up in the MAC for a short period of time in football, and then the other sports were in the A-Sun, as everyone remembers. And then it wasn't until Conference USA. I felt like that move to Conference USA was really the first time that UCF could really see itself as the road was paved out that way. And for everyone making fun of Conference USA now, it's easy to forget at that time that CUSA was a serious conference. Like it was considered. I think at the time it was, for those of you who remember, like in that 07, 06, 07, 08, 09 sort of time period, CUSA was, the Big East obviously still existed and was considered a power conference because they had a tie-in with the BCS at the time. And CUSA was considered the top of the next tier. Yeah, it was kind of them and the Mountain West at the time. When UCF moved on from Conference USA to the American, that's when we had the ill-fated, Times Square reveal. At that time, the conference was still known as the Big East, but then, the bottom kind of dropped out with all those teams leaving. They had to sell the name Big East Conference to the Catholic schools that left to form their own league, just to keep the conference financially afloat. And it was really something. Like, I mean, you guys all remember that, like especially you, Andrew, and people like Matt and some of the other folks here there. It felt like the rug got pulled out from underneath us. And then our first year in it, we win that last, lame duck BCS spot and beat Baylor and kind of serve some notice. And then all of a sudden, our run of the American happens. Let me bring Nick Porcelli in, who's in a car in Jacksonville parachuting in to join us right now. Nick, I want to get your thoughts right now, because you're the youngest out of all of us. You've kind of been living a charmed life. But interestingly enough, I should mention, you're from Tampa. You previously worked for our soon-to-be erstwhile sister SB Nation site in the Daily Stampede. Their son unfortunately is going away, and by the way, I got to say, shout out to Nathan Bond and Robert Steig and all the guys out there who, for all the back and forth over the years, they've been good to us in terms of in terms of supporting colleagues, and I'm bummed to see what's happened with them, but obviously they're going to continue their work in other media, but UCF now leaves USF behind, and what does that mean? I think for UCF in particular, where this is a whole different ballgame now in the Big 12, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I guess. Well, first of all, I'd also like to say, shout out to the Stampede guys. I hope they do well. I would not be where I am right now if it weren't for them. But obviously, yeah, it's a bit their competition. Me personally, as we move on from USF, I hope we can find a true rival. And we talked about this in the past. You felt it with USF, that became a real rivalry. There was real venom going back and forth, and that's something I hope that we can find. But I think it could take a while because we're facing a lot tougher competition than USF because right now they're going at it back and forth with FAU right now, which if you guys remember, they once said that we would have to try to do. So,
oh boy,
karma.
That was some really funny stuff.
That was the greatest.
Guys, have you seen that, by the way?
That was the greatest line I've ever read in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, hats off right there. That was I read the article as well, and it was a very good recap, I think, of how UCF may have lost the battle in the mid 2000s, but in the end, I mean, they won the war.
And now here you go. This is from the American. but it was a really fantastic piece that the Tampa Bay Times did, because they talked about how UCF just, smart planning for the future works. I'm a really big believer in that, because we saw what happened. Yeah, people can make fun of the bounce house all they want, but guess what? I remember my first game coming to the bounce house. I was working in Georgia at the time. I couldn't make it for the Texas game. I really wanted to be there for that, but I couldn't make it. So I made it for the Memphis game, which was the conference opener, the first ever conference game in the building. And I actually drove. I woke up really early. It was an 8-hour drive from Georgia. I drove down and drove right into campus. I didn't stay with my now wife, then girlfriend, but I didn't stop off at her place or any of that. I just drove right down 408, right through the back way through campus, through Research Park, and I didn't know where to park. And I didn't have any cash on me, so I decided to park like on the other side of campus, like over by the Honors College, actually, because I was in the Honors College. I actually worked at the Honors College for 3 of the 4 years I was there. I loved that place. That was my home on campus, and that and anywhere around athletics and the communications building, of course. But when I got there, I was like, I just want to walk. I'm going to park here. I'm going to walk through the campus. I just want to see what this is all about. And to see like Memory Mall just covered in, I'd never seen in my entire life so many people that were all in, wearing UCF gear. I mean, really, like I'd been to all the games in the Citrus Bowl when I was a student there. It seemed like the fan base jumped tenfold, it was remarkable. I was almost moved to tears. Shout out to Lonely Bumblebee on YouTube, who said that first year tailgate was wild, no rules. Yeah, it was pretty wild. We had to learn sort of on how to do, how to do, hosting football games on campus. But we figured it out. Yeah, sure. We had some real bumps in the road. Everyone, loves to bring up, USF fans love to bring up the water fountain situation, but guess what? We got that rectified, and lo and behold, it's, by 2017, that was a real play. And I'll never forget what Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati said. You want to know how good your place is, your program is, ask your opponents. They'll tell you. And Desmond Ritter said, he's like, I played in Notre Dame. I played in all these different places. He's like the loudest, most intimidating place I've ever been is the bounce house. I mean, what's that tell you? So we're looking at about, an hour and 4 minutes until it's time. I'm going to go back to.
Are we going to pop champagne at midnight?
I had a suggestion to burn this American Athletic Conference hat. I don't think I'm going to do that. Because I get this. All right, this shows you how far we've come. I still have this hat. This is a Mac hat, and on the back, UCF. I actually got this from the staff of the MAC at 2002 Football Media Day, which was held at the Citrus Bowl, and they had them all. They were like, and I went and covered it. I remember talking to Byron Leftwich, who was there. I talked to all the coaches that UCF was playing, and at the end they were like, "Hey man, you guys are great. Here's this hat." And I was like, "Oh cool, MAC, UCF." I was like, "All right." And by the way, no one crap on the MAC, because back when we were in it, that was a real league, man. There were some really talented football players in that league at the time. I mentioned Byron Leftwich. He wasn't the only one. I watched Ben Roethlisberger throw 5 touchdowns on us in 1.5 when we were playing Miami of Ohio. But now we're moving forward into the Big 12, and I wanted to get in what Matt said here. Notice how most of our new conference brethren is welcome with us with open arms, but you look at the AAC regional rivalry posts, and USF, ECU, and Memphis fans are beside themselves. Well, yeah, I mean, they're right now on the outside looking in, and I'll say that there's. I hope we also, as a fan base, realize how fortunate we are right now because, and Andrew, I think you can speak to this. I feel like we hopped on one of the last trains out of the station here, and I'm a little worried about that. We have this really neat little video that UCF put together. Thanks to the Memories for the American. Really cool video package that UCF put together. We just are killing it on the content, man.
I got a little bit choked up watching that, to be honest.
I know, we've seen there are a lot of UCF moments and athletes and coaches who've done great things in this era, and they're going to look back on that with really fond memories. But this is a whole different ballgame now. But maybe, I don't know, Andrew, what do you think? Maybe this was the last train out of the station?
Well, I have sort of a unique perspective on it since I covered a lot of games at FIU. Those two, FIU and FAU, were kind of duking it out for a while. Mm-hmm. They both started their football programs within a year of each other. They're both in South Florida, which is a great recruiting market. They're both tied together by Don Shula. They both had famous head coaches to start. And for a while, FIU seemed to be on the higher track. They had Mario Cristobal as their head coach for a few years. But then they just let it all fall to waste, and now FAU is in the American, and FIU is stuck in CUSA, which is a shell of itself. You're talking about how great CUSA was. Pete Garcia. Andrew said Pete Garcia. He was the director of sports and entertainment, I think was the title they gave to him, which was so weird. But he was, for all intents and purposes, their athletic director. He hurt that program so bad, they may never recover, even though Scott Carr is their AD now.
Former UCF administrator Scott Carr, props to Scott Carr, because if anyone can fix what's going on down at FIU, he can.
Absolutely. I didn't see much of him, but he, after the FIU swimming and diving team won the CUSA championship, a few months after he came in, he dove in with the swimmers to celebrate the championship. At that point, I knew they had somebody, and he's in his polo and his slacks. He doesn't care. He's diving in that pool with them. I knew at that point that they had picked a winner to salvage what they do have remaining. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's kind of their own separate train station, CUSA to the American. The big train departure, though, like you mentioned, is from G5 to P5. And, I know some people are saying pull up the ladder, let other teams wither in the G5. I disagree with that, because if it weren't for OU and Texas moving, are there any sports at FIU? Or a comment from Eric. But if OU and Texas don't move on to the SEC, we're still in the American, pure and simple. Mm-hmm. And who knows how long we would have been in the American. So we are very fortunate to be on this last train out, but I hope it's not. I mean, Memphis, they have a big works program going on to renovate the Liberty Bowl. South Florida is finally building a stadium, supposedly. There are other programs that deserve to be in the P5, but just the nature of things, I don't know if things are going to, if more teams are going to come into the P5 anytime soon.
I did want to answer that question from Eric Edwards. Shout out to Eric. While UCF was in the American, are there any sports that we did not win a conference title? He said baseball was close. We did win the regular season title in baseball in Greg Lovelady's first year. Didn't win the tournament. Obviously, softball. I'm going to go through this. Bryson, you probably know this off the top of your head because you're really good at that, and I'm getting old and I can't remember as much as I used to. Obviously football, volleyball. UCF won in volleyball. UCF was won in both men's and women's soccer in the American. Rowing. Men's basketball, we have not.
Yes, men's basketball, we haven't. We also did not
win in women's basketball.
Yes, we did. That was that one was in 2022 under the last year under Coach.
And golf and tennis, Bryson. We've got men's and women's golf, men's and women's tennis. I think we've won at least one in each of those, right?
No, men's golf we haven't.
That's right, men's golf.
And not as a team anyway. There might have been an individual one, maybe if I remember. I might be misremembering that, but
I can't remember.
As a team, men's golf we did not do. Women's golf we did twice. We also didn't do it. We also didn't win one in cross country.
It's also really hard.
Oh, it is really hard. Like Tulsa, by the way, has been dominating cross country the past few years. When you follow all of the sports, it's really interesting to see how the hierarchies are a little bit different. Like Tulsa's just a dynamo in men's soccer, for instance. That type of thing.
Let's bring in Andrew Glukov, Stat Boy Drew on Twitter, to join us here tonight. Got in here to talk a little bit more about UCF moving to the Big 12, and this now we can actually, we're less than an hour away. Eric Edwards makes a good point. Like, which sport did the worst well in the American? Really, they all did pretty dadgum good. Basketball didn't win a conference title, but we had that one year where it actually felt like we did. Men's golf has had some really good years where they didn't win the conference tournament. It's hard to win, obviously, but they have been to the NCAA several times.
Had Anne-Marie Blaney.
Yeah, right. Cross country had Anne-Marie Blaney, who was fantastic. So I want to get Andrew Glukov in here because I want to go again roundtable a little bit. As we have now less than 1 hour to go in the American. Real quick, a little rapid fire here. What's your and I'm going to start with Andrew, and we're going to go counterclockwise. So Nick, you're going to be next after Drew. Favorite memory from the American?
Oh, easily, it's got to be the 2017 conference championship game by far. It's at home. It's you're basically extra innings, with double overtime going on. The amount of drama, the blocked field goal that happened during regulation, where you thought something magical was going to happen and all of a sudden it didn't. I think it had all the pieces for the epic game. I think even more so than the win the prior week against USF.
Yeah, it's easy for us to forget. Like, if we blow that game, the whole thing goes up in smoke. And let's not forget, Drew, too. I remember a couple years ago we had Trey Neal on our podcast, and kind of breaking down that game. And I was like, let's not forget, Riley Patterson was lined up for a field goal that would have won the game in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And Riley Patterson's in the NFL now. I remember Eric Lopez was like, "There's no way he's going to make that." I'm like, there's a non-zero chance he's going to make that. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's because he was a freshman at the time. But I'm like, you hit it right, it's over. And he missed it. Actually he had the first one blocked, but I think I think a timeout was called, or there was a penalty, which
It
wiped out
was
the clock, and
delay
you
of
basically
game.
got another
It's
shot.
delay of game.
It was a delay of game. That's right. That's right.
The block
I
that didn't
remember
happen.
my heart.
Right.
My heart sank because I have this thing of I constantly watch the play clock to see if they're going to do delay of game. My heart sank when I saw the zeros go up and the play happen, and made it even worse when he blocked the kick. Oh God, he's going to make the next kick, but thankfully he missed.
Yeah. Nick Porcelli, what about you?
Well, you already mentioned it. I'm the youngest one here. You know, I only just finished my second year for UCF, so I kind of have a lower amount of years like truly rooting for the team. Maybe one of them is softball winning it this year because I got to see that live, or the Alec Holler catch because also I was there live. But I think I'm going to give it to UCF beating Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl because I got to be there, and it was just a feeling of getting it, able to say, hey, we beat you, Florida, especially considering, you know, I have a lot of people who go there, and, you know, getting to be able to talk trash without them getting the same thing back. That was just awesome. Especially for my first year coming here.
Here was the, by the way, going back to Drew, I just want to bring this up real quick. Here was the, after the delay of game penalty, the missed field goal by Riley Patterson. This was from 52. 48-48 with 33 seconds to go, no chance.
But that's a kick he could have.
He had the distance. It was that close. So,
why are you giving me heartburn, Jeff? This is supposed to be a joyous occasion.
Listen, remember, this is a little bit of a
Jeff is a joy.
Let's get it out of us. We're gonna enjoy this. It was all worth it. In 51 minutes, it will have all been worth it, right?
You are an assassin of joy, Jeff.
Andrew Sagona, your favorite moment?
Oh, that's tough. I could say the 2017 conference championship game. Oh, Darrell Henderson. Don't remind me.
Golly, I think he just ran for another touchdown against us. But anyway.
Oh man, there's so I could list off to you. I couldn't even give you a top 10 of just how many amazing moments there were, but I think for me, it has to be the 2014. Well, the 2014 Fiesta Bowl, and I'll explain why. That was, everyone knew that was the one shot. We didn't know if we were ever going to make it to a major bowl again, because as you mentioned earlier, that was the Big East's lame duck season with the automatic qualifier. So, you know, the game against Louisville, it was all building up. The Louisville game, the Houston game, Stanback's just absolute demolition of Nick Chaffee. But then you were like, we made it. We got the conference championship. We're going to whatever bowl. Then we find out it's the Fiesta Bowl. Then no one gave us a chance. I think one of ESPN's analysts said that if he could they rank the bowls based on how confident they are. They give it, 1 point as, I don't think this is going to be, I don't know who's going to win this, to 30 whatever, as this is my most confident. And the analyst said, if I could give this more points, I would. Because we were supposed
Mark
to be...
May? I think it was Mark May.
It wasn't Mark May, even though he's a complete tool. Yeah, I don't have nice things to say about Mark May. But no, it wasn't Mark May. But I remember it was 35 confidence points because it was 35 bowls at the time. And he said, if I could get 36, I would. At first, I thought it was Todd McShay. But I think I'm wrong on that one.
Or was it I think Joel Klatt also had some things to say about that. But
I think everyone had something to say.
Yeah, I got some of the highlights up here. I thought I remember coming into watching that game. I was like, hey, I just hope we show up and show well. Like, we're probably going, like, the rational fan in me was like, this is a really good Baylor team that scores a bazillion points a game. Like, I just don't know. I hope we just make ourselves proud, right?
Mhm.
But I thought I was watching when we first started the game, and we saw it a minute ago, right there, right? When we were physical with them in the first two drives, and we jumped out 14-0, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, we've come to play today. And you know what? Baylor was, I think it's kind of funny. Like, we won the game 52-42, and I think there's like some missed. It's like we don't remember this game properly as a fan base because we thought of it as a like we kind of wrecked them. But Baylor, to their credit, they kept this game close the whole game, and but we caught a couple breaks, right? We got this was one of them, that one defensive player. It was the Tyler Summers game. Remember Tyler Summers?
Mm-hmm.
And because the defensive coordinator had just left, but we turned the ball over a couple times that game, like right there. But we just kind of kept them at bay. Long enough in that first half. Our defense really made some key stops. And we were able to score on them. I think that people didn't think that we could score enough to keep up with Baylor. And, turns out we did,
Well, their tackle fundamentals were awful. Just absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, that we absolutely, we physically, I think the key to this game in this moment was we physically beat their defense. That was the big key. And they made a bunch of mistakes. I remember them playing very sloppy football. They committed a lot of penalties, and it was classic O'Leary. We had some turnovers in that game. Like, there was another one. Like, there was 2 turnovers in the first half. I think 3 turnovers in the first half. But the defense bailed us out. And in addition to that, there was one they threw right back to us right after that. And we just played a disciplined football game. We didn't commit any stupid penalties. We converted on third downs, and our speed, I think that's what everyone was really surprised about. Like, our speed beat their speed. And that was when I think the whole country learned, like, oh man, what do we got here? Like, if they're going to be good, what's going to happen next?
Well,
and I want to remind the youngins in here that back when George O'Leary was head coach, we were excited when they scored 21 points because we got free cheesy bread from Little Caesars. So
we were happy when a field goal was made.
Well, the whole idea was, like, we were not an offensive team. Like, it was. I've said many times, like, my thoughts on George O'Leary are complex, and rightfully so. But he had a way that he liked to win, and that way that he liked to win involved running the ball and playing defense. And let me tell you something, that's not exactly a lot of fun to watch.
And when he deviated, it usually didn't go well.
No, that's right.
Point. Yeah, obviously you haven't asked least favorite moment. I had to think about this. I can narrow it down to one play. It was 2013 against South Carolina, where they decided to do this stupid double pass. And what does Jeff Godfrey do? Throws an interception. And that actually led to a touchdown that cost UCF the game, which kind of mutes a little bit how big this game could have been, because they were that close to running the table once already at that point.
And then we would have had a really interesting discussion back then. I mean, we lost to South Carolina at home by 3 points. And this is key too. Baylor misses the field goal right before the end of the half. And now, by the way, we're going to play them in our first Big 12 game.
How appropriate.
Yeah. Bookends, right? But Bryson, I want to go to you while we're taking a look at this. What do you remember about or your fondest memory of covering UCF in the American era?
Well, covering is a little if you want to say cover, it would be the softball regional. Covering. For experience, this is from before I was on the Banneret. There's a kind of two that are very close together. One is the 2017 AAC championship, because this video was recorded of me that I still have to this day. A long story short of it, I won't play it, but long story short of it, I got hyped about the interception, and I was like, you can go wherever the heck you want, Frost. We won this championship. But I think the slight edge goes to the 2018 title game. And I think and I say this because of two big things. One, the outpour, Tenhana, the support that the Knights fandom put behind Mackenzie Milton at that point, after coming off of what was one of the most horrific injuries I'd ever seen on a football field. Like, when I saw him go down, I was scared, like legitimately scared. And
we all knew that was bad right off the bat.
And to see the outpouring of support that UCF fans brought during that game was already astounding and really touched me. But the second aspect was when UCF fell behind and Josh Heupel came out on the field to check on an injured UCF player, and you notice as he's walking back, he's pumping up the crowd, and the ESPN zooms in on him doing that and pulls out, and that pulling out and seeing the bounce house just come alive. Like, we were down by so much at that point in time, but to see Josh Heupel bring the crowd back into the game and then watch the comeback that ensued afterwards, without Mackenzie Milton, was one of the most amazing UCF football games that I have ever witnessed. As far as being a fan is concerned, it was just a perfect storm of so many different factors that I think that 2018 title game, I think, is going to be the one that the fondest memory, just as far as, being a UCF fan is concerned.
Speaking of perfect storms, we saw Storm Johnson's touchdown just then in the fourth quarter of the game against Baylor. That put us up 2 scores. Again, hard for everybody to forget, but we were up only 1 score in the fourth quarter, and this fourth quarter was, I thought, shout out to the late Charlie Taff. This was his masterpiece, because we got the lead and we just took care of them. We put them away. And go up, at that point, 4:44 to go, up 17. That was where we were like, okay. Granted, I know that Baylor team back then could score 17 points in under 4.5 minutes, but it was like, the way we're playing right now, I think we're going to be okay. And 52-42 was the final for that game. Yeah, Bryson, I'm a little partial to that game too myself. The 2018 championship game, for that, it was really emotional, but it was a real comeback. But here's a play that I think a lot of fans, we remembered at the time, but it's easy for us to forget. The gambler, Josh Heupel, right? Rolling the dice on that 4th down call in the third quarter. Andrew 1 and Andrew 2, you both remember this one. And Greg McCrae took care of business. I'm going to try and find that play, but that was.
I'll tell you what. I still remember that the use. I will call that era, if we can't call, like, the Frost, Heupel, and Malzahn eras are like so close with each other and so short at this moment in time. I essentially call the Frost and Hypo years the UC Fast era, only because throughout those 2 years, what really would define UCF was the lockdown rushers, whether it was Mackenzie Milton or the running backs, where you had a 3-headed, sometimes 4-headed monster in the backfield. You had, and they could catch the ball too. Adrian Killens and Otis Anderson doing what they did there. But of all the running backs, I feel like that people may not remember. You mentioned him, Greg McCrae. The guy had one of the best rushing seasons statistic-wise in program history.
Lightning in a bottle, that kid. He was something, man.
Former walk-on. I mean, enough said.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the play I think everyone remembers. Is DJ Mack hitting Otis Anderson and getting UCF to within 10 here. But, let's not forget, third quarter, it was still early. That was a key play in that game. But, Darrell Henderson was still doing Darrell Henderson things. But it was here, right about when Randy Shannon's defense kind of finally stepped up. There was the flag. Was that Joey Connors who made that play? I think it was, yeah. And this got us to within, this is Gabe Davis. And, we're coming down, I think, Andrew Glukov, help me out. I think it might have been the first play of the fourth quarter, I think, wasn't it?
Oof, been a while since
we'll find out soon enough. Yeah, 30 at this point it was 38-35, force another third down.
I'll be honest. This was not my favorite game because it was a technically ugly game. I mean, you're watching it right now. It was not a pretty game.
It was wild. It was just as wild as the previous year's championship game was. I thought that this was even more wild because of the giant swings and momentum of this game.
Well, and the thing was, the Memphis team in 17 was a better team. They were better than their 18 counterparts. And in both cases, somehow,
look at how close that should have been a touchdown pass right there, that third and goal.
Should have been.
And forced the field goal, right? So dodged a bullet, but the defense came up, made a play on third down as they needed to in that game. Here's the Greg McCrae play on 4th and 1 on our own 49. Golly, Greg. 49-yard run on 4th and 1.
See, now that's the 4th and 1 everyone should remember.
Yeah, right.
Thinks of the other one. No. That one was in a slop fest. That is exactly what should have happened. This one I think was a lot more difficult because remember, that was supposed to be a run up the middle, and it was closed. And you go back.
I want to go back to that and show it again.
You go back and McCrae has the vision and patience to realize it's not there. I'm not going to force it, and he bounces to the outside where there's no one. Because
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it in half speed here. All right, so
they've stacked.
Where's this play going? It's going right side. It's going off tackle right, and this guy blows it up.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be going up
and he just made that little hitch out to the right, and once he got around that DB, great block downfield. Is that Trey Nixon? Yeah, it was Trey Nixon who made that block. And golly,
they crashed the line. They pinched and crashed the line, so they had no outside containment. Which once they've committed, and then when he bounced outside, there was no one, in that zip code, and he had free reign to run half a field.
He ran.
I want to move. Go ahead, Bryson.
McCrae, I have it right here. McCrae ran for 1,182 yards that season, and his average was 14.5 yards, or 8.9 yards. I'm sorry, that was
8.9 yards a carry.
8.9 yards per carry. I really hope people remember Greg McCrae because it's a really great guy. Trust me, but Greg, I really hope people are able to remember Greg McCrae because that season for him he was an integral to UCF being undefeated that year.
33 minutes to go. I'm going to spend these last 3 minutes on the past, and then we're going to move to the future here for the final half hour. Let's do this. We're going to start with Bryson, and we're going to go back counterclockwise, I should say. Bryson, I'll start with you, and let's make this rapid fire. Say something nice about the American.
They had a very good other sports. Football, they had the Power Six angle, and but I think in
a little bit of trouble with that one, Bryson. I'm not gonna lie. You're kind of like
softball.
like you were searching for that one.
What I mean is that softball was actually no. Now that I had a second to think about it, it's this. They supported us when the 2017 national championship claim happened. It is around that time where the American also started to kind of get on the Power Six bandwagon. And so the fact that we had our conference, in a sense, backing us up in our quest to punch up at the Power Five and at hey, we're here too. I think that's the best thing. One of the best things I can say about the American is that when we were making that stand in 17-18, they had our backs.
Interesting you say that.
Because the massive fan base, about the majority of the fan base, completely 100% disagrees with you because they didn't have that was in the middle of the negotiations for the television contract, and you couldn't say anything to support UCF.
Right. Well, that's exactly the thing that I was going to say was, Bryson, you're right. It's just that publicly they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. But they were, but I heard this from people who were talking, within the American who were following on. They're like, we're loving this. You guys are just giving us all of the branding, all of the off-season juice, and it's tremendous. We are just loving this. They were like, look, we wish we could, but we have a TV contract working out, and we're not going to crap on our TV partner in the middle, like. That people forget, like the CFP, that's ESPN's Super Bowl.
Yeah,
because prior to the new NFL contract, they couldn't get a Super Bowl.
You don't crack down on your corporate overlords.
Exactly.
Extort them for more money.
We would have literally been biting the mouth that fed us.
Now, Bryson's not wrong though, in the fact of once the contract was signed, the conference started to make a lot more noise almost overnight. It was just they were kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So you got your public perception versus private reality.
Yeah. Andrew Sagona, let's go to you. What would you say something nice about the American?
It was a good incubator. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. That's a great way of putting it.
It was a fantastic conference for us to develop our sports across the board. And it wasn't just, slapdash competition. It was great competition. I mean, Houston was right behind us. We had, 54 championships? They had 51. We got our chance to play against South Florida again. We unfortunately had to play Tulsa multiple times.
Don't get me started on that.
And the worst thing is, I was born in Tulsa, so imagine how much that hurts.
We've had that. I've had that discussion several times with Bryce. We were talking about it the other night. Like Tulsa, man. You got to tip your cap to that program because they punch way above their weight class. You know how many undergraduate students they have at the University of Tulsa?
I believe they're the smallest FBS school.
Pretty close to 4. Yeah. They have 2,900 undergraduate students. They're smaller than the military academies. So that gives you an idea of them punching above their weight class. Yeah, that's a great point.
So as much as we built up over time, I mean, we've been playing sports since the 70s, but I feel like the American, we made the most strides in those 10 years across the board than in any previous 10 years in the program's, the whole athletic department's history. I could be wrong. I could be missing some 10-year period somewhere in the past, but I feel like all of our teams really stepped up and developed in the American, thanks to the American.
Andrew Glukov.
Exposure. People don't realize what was happening when the American first started. I mean, basically, it was brought from brought back from the dead. This was a conference that had no television deal after one more season in 2013. I mean, there was nothing left. So, you know, people, I know a lot of UCF fans give Mike Oresco a lot of crap, but there's one thing that he did well was salvage a working media deal. Sure, he didn't get as much money as he wanted, but the exposure he got was ridiculous. The deal was originally meant to be with NBC, and then ESPN had the right of first refusal. They matched it, and then they actually sweetened the pot a little bit on the exposure side. But ESPN Plus has been nothing but a godsend to UCF's athletic department. Aside the fact that it's given them the really not just the motivation, but the necessity to build a good in-house product. And we've seen bad products, Houston, where their in-house production is so bad they outsource it and they're still terrible. And UCF puts them to shame. So it allows development there, but it allows
shout out. Forgive me, Andrew. Shout out to Major Hal and John Kovacic before him.
They do a fantastic job. UCF's video department is second to none. They've done an amazing job. Definitely pound for pound, one of the best out there, because I know they, like a lot of other departments in UCF, need more resources, need more funding. And I've been saying it since day one. The first thing UCF needs to work on isn't expansion or other this stuff. It's pay your staff, take care of your people, and keep your all-stars here, because those guys are hard to replicate. But I digress. That second contract where they had, you know, the entire package on ESPN, there was no more outsourcing to CBS Sports or, you know, insert random television network here. It was all under the ESPN family. It allowed a number of ABC games for UCF, especially as backup plans in 2020, where, heck, UCF had a game, I think it was against East Carolina, that went from being on ESPN Plus to ABC because, you know, COVID happened. And the media deal was very friendly. They had the American in ESPN's back pocket for when they needed it. You know, even games on ESPN Plus, still very accessible. Every game is accessible. That's one thing I'm happy about this new Big 12 contract. ESPN Plus still going to play a valuable role. Is going to be taking over all the third tier rights, for the conference. We've seen the value there. I think that exposure opened the door to show that not only football, which gets all the the pomp and circumstance and the TV stuff, but the other sports are not just a bunch of also-rans. They were competitive. They were winning championships. There's value in that. You can't replicate that. And so the exposure of these television contracts cannot be understated. Sure, more money would have been nice, but you know what? I would take the exposures. I'd rather take more exposure in the media than the money. So I think it worked out.
Well, the two were directly related. I mean, the fact that UCF was able to be so successful in the early part of the American led to those additional contracts.
Well, remember, it's still, but they were still under market. The market was not very favorable.
No, it wasn't. And even afterwards, you could say, was UCF actually in the latest AAC television contract making the amount of money that they were worth? Probably not. But then again, it's because UCF was on the right-hand side of the bell curve, right?
Yeah, it's all about the
You're
sum of the
paying
parts.
right. You're paying for the sum of the parts, and the middle of the conference was worth about $7 million a year. UCF was worth probably about $10 to $12 million a year.
And that first contract was only about 2. That's how
Right.
That's how cobbled
It was
this thing
pocket
was.
change. And they, it
was a
was
skeleton deal.
almost like ESPN was taking a flyer on the American at the time.
They were. I mean, there was this hodgepodge of schools, and anyone that's actually worth anything from the Big East was gone. Louisville was gone. I mean, West Virginia, Pitt, all those teams gone. There was nothing left. So you just had this hodgepodge of leftovers: Temple, USF, and Connecticut.
1 year of Rutgers and Louisville.
Yeah, well, that was the old contract.
Yeah.
So it didn't even matter. And then you had a bunch of Conference USA schools, and CUSA, as they already know, didn't carry much value. So I mean, it was basically held with duct tape and chewing gum. MacGyver would have blushed, and you know what? It held.
Yeah. I want to get Nick in real quick before we have some news to report, and then we're going to move to Big 12 discussion as the countdown continues now. Less than 22 minutes from UCF joining the Big 12 conference. Nick Porcelli, say something nice about the American.
Great memories. Like, some of our greatest memories as a UCF fan came while we were at this conference. I mean, we just spent the last however long that was reminiscing about the amazing times we had. And I think we're all going to look back fondly in our time there, just some amazing moments that we're never going to forget happened.
Yeah.
I think
nostalgia, man.
I think that kind of speaks to the media deal that you were talking about, because the media deal allowed all of these moments to be documented and redistributed amongst the entire fan base for us to relive collectively.
100%.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like, look at what softball was able to do. Look at the walk-off wins that UCF had, the big moments that they had against Florida and Georgia and everything. Like, that was a huge, huge boost to UCF gaining a public profile. I think it was Eric who told me that he had heard that win against Florida that UCF had in softball was the most watched ESPN Plus UCF event, and was partially instrumental in giving UCF the pub that they needed to eventually be selected as a site host for the NCAA tournament. And shout out to you guys for recognizing that. Shout out to Eric Edwards for recognizing that. That was definitely a big thing. I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. Like, it was a good incubator for UCF's brand, not just with football and men's basketball, but also with I disagree with calling it, but the Olympic sports as well. And that was huge. That was definitely huge. All right. I want to drop a little news here. The Big 12 actually did announce earlier today that the new media deal is basically signed, sealed, and delivered. To bring that up, I'm going to try and pull up some more of the details here. The media deal that UCF is going into with the Big 12, and this is Fan Nation, which is part of SI, through 2030, 2031, with ESPN and Fox, $2.3 billion a year is first, or not $2.3 billion a year, excuse me, $2.3 billion total. Let's see. Okay, so $220 million per year through June 30th, 2025. After that, the payout increases to $380 million per year. Obviously, Texas and OU are going to be leaving after this coming season. So 1 year of 14 teams, and then we go back down to 12. Obviously, it's not what the Big Ten and the SEC are getting, but Andrew Glukov, I want to get you in on this. It's pretty obvious right now that the clear number 3 conference in terms of value is the Big 12 right now.
Well, in terms of attainable value, you can argue about the ACC, but they're stuck in contract purgatory for another 15 years.
5 years after the Big 12's contract is up.
Correct. The Big 12 is going to renegotiate a whole new deal before the ACC ever gets a chance to. They sold their soul for the ACC network. That's where that huge grant of rights kicked in. And so you look at this deal, 6-year deal, which has now become the new thing. You're going to see shorter deals so that they can stay on top of the curves. The Big Ten started this, and I think everyone's going to be doing it going forward. There's a grant of rights in place for that same amount of time. So the Big 12, I think more so than anything else, it's stable, which has been something that the Big 12 hasn't been in a while. Like, yeah, the members didn't change, but there was always that sense of someone's looking to get out. Well, now no one's leaving for at least 6 years because the amount of money you would have to cough up to get out of a grant of rights situation is so astronomical. No school is going to pay it. You've heard the talking heads who've looked into the Big 12's grant of rights, which is what gave birth to the ACC grant of rights, ironclad. They incorporated in Delaware for these.
Houdini can't get out of that contract.
Yeah, I mean, good Lord. I mean, a freaking sorcerer from, the fantasy world isn't getting out of that thing. Nightcrawler cannot teleport out of this thing. I mean, it's trapped.
I'm loving these references.
So it breaks down to about 31 in change a year. This does not include NCAA units and other revenue streams. Brent Yormark has done an absolute fantastic job of just opening new avenues and ideas. An outsider coming in turned out to be the shot in the arm that the college world needed, because he's come up with these fantastic ideas of finding new ways to bring more money into this conference. The talk is, when it's all said and done, including all the tournament units, everything, you're looking at probably a $50 million check. What was the most that UCF ever brought in the American? About 9, maybe 10 when it was
8,
all
I
said.
think.
When it was all said and done, when you take in tournament credits and all that other stuff into consideration. So, you're talking a huge jump. Now, granted, this starts in 2025. UCF has 2 years where they have fixed amounts of $18 and $19 million. And that's actually coming out of the coffers of the remaining 8. Mm-hmm. And they're using the buyout from Texas and Oklahoma to make up for that. So the new contract has pro rata built in on ESPN, Fox not so much. The new contract has ESPN taking more of a primary role than Fox. Fox had much more of a role in this current contract. They've kind of taken a couple steps back, ESPN a couple steps forward. But you've got to be absolutely thrilled. We saw what the benefits of a good exposure-based contract with the American, and you're going to see that with the Big 12. Big Ten's no longer in the ESPN family, so now you have the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. That's your big 3 in ESPN, and they're going to make sure that's who gets the top billings. It's not going to be the American. They're going to get pushed down. It's not going to be the Sun Belt. They're going to get pushed down. UCF's going to benefit from the exposure standpoint by not having as many online relegated games compared to what they did in the American.
Yeah. Nick, Bryson, you brought this up, and I think this is a good point. According to Ross Dellinger today, as part of the finalization of the TV deal, the Big 12 expects to play weekday football games, including Friday nights. Thoughts on that, Andrew Glukov? Because, listen.
I hate Friday night college football. Absolutely hate it. That is a high school day. It's a travesty that college football has hijacked it. Thursday night was a college football day until the NFL hijacked it. I actually feel bad for Florida high school football because it's a huge thing, and they're getting cheated. Weekday games were never a huge negative thing for me. I love Maction in the midweek. It was because you usually get a lot of offensive heavy football there. I miss the Thursday night games that always had good, ranked matchups. Good teams used to play on Thursday night. But Friday's meant for high school. I mean, I understand.
But let me ask you, let me play devil's advocate on this. One of the advantages of UCF's exposure, or one of the benefits from UCF's exposure in the American, was the fact that they did play on weeknights. They didn't get lost in the shuffle of all the other leagues, and they had Thursday nights to themselves or Friday nights to themselves. If you can provide good products on weekday games, is it better to play a primetime weekday game when you could be have the run all to yourself in terms of people who care about college football, or is it better to play all your games at noon on a Saturday?
Well, you're always going to end up wanting, we want the exclusive spot. It's more of I just don't like them because I don't like what they represent.
You're an old fuddy-duddy. It's 2023, man. Get over it.
It's the fact of I enjoy high school football on Friday nights. There's nothing wrong with that. Would that change? Would I put on the UCF game? Absolutely. It's a stupid question to ask. How dare you ask that question? The truth is, you want the best possible exposure to give the best possible product. And if the ESPN says, look, we'll give you Friday nights exclusively on ESPN, which then will push all the other conferences. Okay, you're going to get people. But on the flip side, you're also going to hurt your numbers a bit for the same reason that I gave. Say it's TCU versus UCF. You think there's going to be some Texas, people, some fans in the state of Texas that are going to go to their high school game instead? Absolutely. So, I mean, it's not a perfect system, compared to Thursday night. But Thursdays are gone. The NFL took them. So it's it's either get lost at noon or get that Friday night primetime game. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Shout out to Nick Porcelli, by the way, who's still on the road between Jacksonville and Orlando, hopefully not actually driving. Get your tuxedos out, kids. We're coming up on 10 minutes left until UCF joins the Big 12. So let's pivot along from that. As we look at the Big 12, obviously we're leaving some rivalries behind in the American. We were talking a little bit about this. Andrew Sagona, I'll start with you. Who do you think has the pole position to be our rival in the Big 12, at least as it stands right now?
Well, I mean, early on, you'd have to say that the teams moving along with us, so Cincinnati and Houston, would have the edge because we've had 10 years of experience with them. I mean, look at Houston. We had the 2013 game where Brashad Perriman was knocked out. That goal line stand against O'Korn. The 2014 game where the ball was knocked out at the end zone for the touchback.
Yeah, was that Greg Ward? Yeah, Greg Ward.
And then, of course, Cincinnati the past few years. So I would have to give it to one of them.
Lonely Bumblebee, how dare you? I'm not even going to go there on that one.
Hey, listen, on Reddit CFB, everyone loves the civil conflict.
Oh, my God.
Although some people want Colorado to come in, so it'd be CONFLICT, so it'd be the conflict in that way.
Oh, my heavens.
Civil Conflict 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Exactly.
Civil Conflict 2, the search for more money.
Spaceball
I just aged myself right there.
Oh, man.
Hey, I love me a good Spaceball reference, so kudos to you. I appreciate that. I guess Citronaut over here would be my yogurt doll.
Merchandising.
Oh my God!
You can't take me anywhere.
I mean, it would be great to establish a rivalry with a new team like an Oklahoma State or we've had a lot of good fights with OSU fans on the Twitterverse.
I noticed that too. I've noticed Oklahoma State, and I've noticed.
Well, they're men. They're 40.
Like I said, we can't take you anywhere. I've noticed. There's something about Oklahoma State. There's two schools that I'm looking at: Oklahoma State and Texas Tech.
Jeff wants Baylor.
I don't want Baylor. I really don't. We've handled their business already. Cut up on 7 minutes. Nick Porcelli, real quick. Who's got your pole position?
I mean, if you go on Wikipedia, there's literally a page for the UCF Cincinnati rivalry, so probably that one, I guess, because we just have the most history. But I'd like to see them, form a rivalry, like you guys said, with another school. But I think it's going to have to come from the play on the field, kind of like something built naturally, like something just happens and we just go back and forth at it. But for right now, Cincinnati.
Interestingly enough, Cincinnati and West Virginia separated by only about 300 miles.
Oh, they don't like each other.
Yeah, they don't.
They're going to go at it.
Especially in basketball. Basketball, that rivalry is serious. Bryson Turner.
I've said this for a long time, and I will continue to shout it from the rooftops. Space Game, Houston. The branding, it's a layup. I know you want to have to establish a rivalry with the new teams, and that's okay. But I'm sorry, you have the both schools supply graduates to NASA. UCF already has the space game. Just make it against Houston all the time, and you have your space rival. It is an absolute perfect layup, and if they don't do it, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. Is it a continuation from the American? Sure, but without USF as the obvious rival, the next obvious one, the next one that has a certain theme behind it, because UCF and USF was I-4, the Interstate 4 that connected them. For UCF in Houston, it's the space program.
What would make a great trophy for that rivalry? I loved it when they. No. I loved when the War on I-4 trophy was a highway sign. I love that.
Should have been Bob's Barricade.
No. It should have been sponsored by Bob's Barricades. I think it should have, but or at least he should have built it. But anyway, imagine a giant Saturn V rocket in like gold.
That would be pretty cool.
Give me that, right? Give me a 4 foot tall Saturn V rocket. When the game's over, they run over and they grab it and they hold it up. That's what I want. That's what I want to see.
That's a good one.
Counterpoint from Lonely Bumblebee out here. Houston just doesn't have fans. They're boring. My God. We've had some good games with BYU in the past. In the early part of the decade, we had that overtime game in 2014 that we won.
They played, 3 times in their entire history, and the last game
and they
good.
Absolutely whacked us in the
Didn't we in the 2011 one? Didn't a punt or a kickoff doink off one of our players' helmets, or was that the FIU?
I don't remember that, but they scored a touchdown on an offsides on a free kick.
Yeah.
Mark Aiken caught that one.
Yeah. I remember the one that was here. We won the game in overtime, and George absolutely blasted the offense after it.
Well, that was the one.
Yeah.
Because they only won 1-3.
We're coming up on 3 minutes, boys. Here we go.
Jeff, real quick, because I just had a chance to say, Bryson is absolutely right. Anyone who thinks it's not Houston is wrong. The thing is,
at least to start.
The thing is, they have,
like we said, the pole position.
They have recency bias, and they only thinking of one sport. what happened to College Game Day Basketball Edition? When Houston was one of the top 5 teams in the country, then
and they had that long home winning streak going too. I forgot about that.
And who did they play? Oh, that was right. It was UCF, and they lost.
We beat them in their gym.
UCF's first ever ranked win in football history was against Case Keenum in Houston.
Oh yeah,
I was there for that. Yeah,
2005 homecoming game, which helped set up the bowl bound. Art Briles was the coach, and he man, these fans are loud and rowdy. We couldn't handle these guys. I mean, that was the start of the loudness that led into the bounce house. You've already hit 13, 14, 7. I mean, the amount of close games that Houston and UCF have had is actually quite a lot. Cincinnati games, largely, they've either been heavily one-sided one way or the other. Last year was an exception. That was actually finally a really good game. But a lot of the games haven't been overly close. Hell, there was the 3-quarter beatdown. I mean, and for the record, I do have that game digitally.
You and I both share the distinction of being digital pack rats. Guys, 90 seconds.
90 we play the final countdown. Is that a possibility?
No, but I have something else that we're gonna play when it finally goes down. I tell you, my last word on this. Thank you to the American. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for supporting us in the way that we supported you. We appreciate all that. We had we won a lot of championships.
Thanks for all the ships.
Thanks for all the ships. And now it's time to move on. 60 seconds to go. We're going to stick around for a little bit afterwards. We'll talk about the football schedule coming up in a little bit and just give our final thoughts on this actually going down. But yeah, it's been quite a ride. And as my countdown's starting to freeze up on me at the worst possible minute. With 36 seconds left to go. But yeah, it's been a long road, a very long road. Years for UCF.
We were in the indie days. You and I, Jeff.
We were in the indie. Yes. My first game was against it was UAB when we were an independent, and now we're going to join a power conference. We have always wanted to be. 10 seconds, gentlemen.
Started from the bottom. Now we're here.
There we go. Started from the bottom, and we are here. 3, 2, 1, and we are in the Big 12, ladies and gentlemen. It has happened.
Sir, let's go.
Blast that fight song, baby. Here we go. UCF is in the Big 12. Let's check out what Twitter's doing right now. Check out Eric DeSalvo. The 407 has gone gold tonight.
An hour ago. Refresh.
Yes, refresh.
I've lost count the number of times I've played this song.
Here we go. Oh, we've got. All right. Let me pull this up. I know we're not going to be able to hear it because we're not going to be able to. I can't play the video from the computer throughout this. But here we are, man. Whew. Man, I never thought in a million. All right, I gotta see this video, man. I'm gonna try. I know we can't hear it, but it's a narrated piece. Big 12 o'clock, they call it. Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna have to refresh it because it froze up on me again. I'm sorry about that. Let me remove it and re-add it.
Jeff, this is why we can't have nice things.
I know. This is what I get for trying to be so technologically savvy here. But I do encourage everyone to actually go take a look at this because yeah, this is pretty cool. Big 12 o'clock is the first line.
That's good. That's clever.
And Yeah, this is a hype video. This is the hype video to end all hype videos right now, man.
It's glorious.
I gotta say, when I look back on it, my favorite moment was College Game Day.
Fair.
That's fair.
Fair.
That's fair.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Another one we didn't bring up, and I was young when this happened, but I love rewatching this on YouTube, is the Rashard Perryman Hail Mary that earned us a share of the conference title. I just love, that's a great one.
One thing we're gonna love when you actually watch and listen to this video, you're gonna love what they did with Adam Silver.
Oh,
What, the
God.
fact that he actually said UCF and not Central Florida?
Hey, he did his
right.
job, and then the ESPN commentators called it UFC. They ruined the
Oh,
moment.
I mean, that's such a common problem.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's like, come on.
They literally
that's
had an
moments.
autocorrect glitch in their brains.
It's like it's not even the right sports.
That
That's
one
mixed martial
bothers me.
arts.
That one doesn't bother me at all because UFC has such a strong presence in the ESPN networks.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Okay, that's fair. But UCF says, hey, call us UCF. Everyone should call them UCF. End of story.
Yeah.
I think I might put this video on a loop in my house.
Just leave it running in your bedroom.
I'm gonna wake up to that in the morning.
Yeah. Wake up to it tomorrow.
And just have it permanently on there so that everyone has to hear it every morning. Put it in every room.
I gotta say, I know that we're only going to be with Oklahoma and Texas for 1 year. I think they announced they're going to be getting out in 1 year, right?
Yes.
1 year, yeah.
Yeah.
But as someone who was born in Oklahoma and lived there for almost 10 years, all you heard about was Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, the Red River rivalry, Red River shootout, what have you. It's surreal in a way that this conference that I didn't follow, but kind of just absorbed into my system by osmosis living in Oklahoma. We're part of that conference now. That just blows my mind.
You know, the fact that this is the 1 year we're going to be with Oklahoma and Dylan Gabriel is their starting quarterback. If we're going to be in the Big 12 with Oklahoma for 1 year, I'm glad it's this year.
God, I wish that. I wish that was a home game, though. Can you imagine the crowd?
Don't expect those websites to change till at least 1 o'clock.
Well, a couple of them actually have already changed. I saw CBS switched over. I saw Fox switched over.
The American changed probably about between 3 and 4 days ago. Conference USA did their change because they had a bunch of membership changes 2 days ago. So
here I am going through this, like trying to make sure that it's real.
And then the Big 12, of course, the Big 12 waited. The Big 12 did nothing.
Watch yourself, Jeff. You're not dreaming.
Oh, boo.
It's still last year's standings.
Oh yeah, that's their last year's standings. Who was it? It was CBS. No, it wasn't CBS Sports.
I think it wasn't the standings. It was a link to like team pages. I think it might have been Fox.
Right. Yeah. Fox Sports
team pages have been updated, but this will start trickling in. July 1st is the start of the new college.
It's when the guy gets into the office tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, right? Hey, make sure that you
switch early.
Yeah. So.
But the American has just updated their Twitter. They updated the website a while ago, but the Twitter cover page wasn't updated until after 12 o'clock tonight.
Okay, we need to show something. Okay, we see UCF Knights. It says future Big 12 conference member. All right, let's see. Oh, come on!
Oh, someone dropped the ball.
Come on, Eric, get on
it. Come on, guys.
You had one job.
What is it? The American you were looking at?
Bryson just said their website updated it though.
So I actually.
Oh, the website updated. Yeah.
Yeah, the website's been updated, but yeah,
come on, guys, Twitter.
call me a nerd, whatever. I like to take. I take.
They flipped the whole website. Holy smokes!
Take 2 copies of the of a web page. You have the old one here, and then you refresh it with the new one, and you just look at them side by side.
Dang, we did some serious work over here. Wow.
Bryson just updated Wikipedia. Thank you.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
Wikipedia don't update itself.
Bryson,
Wow, nice job, guys.
You're a real one.
Hey, that's a really nice job on the website. All right, let's see what our favorite link looks like. Schedule. This will get us to what we need to look at. Schedule right here. All right, 61 days until the opener against Kent State. Here we go. All right, so football schedule's offset. Let me start with this because we're going to look at obviously football's not the first sport that's going to go, but it is the one that everyone's going to be paying attention to. Give me a regular season win figure. Give me a regular season win figure. We'll start from the bottom and go up with you, Nick Porcelli. What do you think? What would you consider a successful first year in the Big 12?
I mean, just to get to a bowl game, honestly, we're facing tougher competition. That's like the realistic fan to me. The optimistic fan is hoping, though, that UCF can pull out what it's done in the past, another miracle, and just, win so many more games, have a magical run. But if they just get to a bowl game, I'll be happy.
All right. Andrew Sagona, go.
I've been chewing on it, and I want to say that probably 7 wins, but that's going to rely heavily on how we do in the non-conference schedule. If we can take 2 of 3 from there, I think we'd have a good shot at 7 wins.
Andrew Glukov?
Well, on the low end, success is obviously going to be a bowl game your first year, but based on everything we've seen, I think success would be an 8 to 9 win season. This is a good team. If a few pieces fall in the right place, and unlike last year, key guys don't get hurt, this is a really good team, and there's a reason why you're seeing talking heads kind of all pointing that out. UCF did a really good job, throughout the portal, shoring up on depth that they didn't have last year in a bunch of key areas. That raises my expectation. I think 8 to 9 would be what they should be aiming for, and if you fall below that, you got to be a little disappointed.
Bryson?
I think success, the bowl game. I think bowl game, but I also think a lot of success could easily come in individual games. For instance, I'm sure a lot of people would love to get a win against Oklahoma against Dylan Gabriel. I'm sure a lot of people would love that. I'm sure people want to win their first Big 12 game against Baylor. I think Baylor is going to, the first home one. I think there's going to be, you want to beat Kansas. I think that's definitely kind of a nice little baseline for you right there. So
Andrew Glukov's favorite head coach, by the way, Lance Leipold.
I'm such a fan.
So
I'm a Leipold stan.
So I honestly think it's really going to come down to sometimes. I think the individual success in the individual games will be a little bit of a determining factor. So like a determining factor on perceptions of success. I mean, success, success, but in the end, the bar is the bowl game. So I think the fact is that we just got to make sure we keep our expectations low, and even if things start to get going, things start to build up, just remember it's like, okay, things are going well, but just hopefully they stay going well, but just brace. This is gonna be a brace kind of year, I think. Just never know.
I'll tell you the truth. This is such a cop-out answer. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm just going to, enjoy seeing us take the field against Kansas State.
Your answer
Baylor.
sucks.
Deal with it.
That is such a cop-out answer, but it's so true.
Your answer is bad, and you should feel bad.
West Virginia here at home. Oklahoma State's coming here. Yeah, Houston. I mean, you just never know.
The space game.
Is it going to be the space game? We don't know yet.
It's in
West Virginia's going to be homecoming. I
have this feeling it's going to probably end up being the homecoming, and just based on the way the schedule shakes.
It's going to be. I mean, I can barely believe it. I mean, wow. Media Day. Here's the guys who are going over to Media Day for UCF. John Rice Plumlee, obviously. Lakai Paole, Javon Baker, Ricky Barber, and Josh Seliskar.
So I have it on good authority that Jeff Sharon has tapped into the reserves to send everyone over to this Media Day.
Really? You have it on good authority? What authority is that?
It's the authority of made-up BS.
Look at this big old spread here. UCF officially joins the Big 12 Conference. Big 12 is thrilled to officially welcome UCF to the conference, said Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. UCF has experienced unprecedented growth and success since becoming a Division I program in 1996. With its addition, the Big 12 adds a university with one of the largest enrollments in the country, one of America's top destination cities that ranks as the 17th largest media market, and expands the conference footprint to one of the top states in the country for D1 prospects. That's the word from Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12. I look forward to working with President Cartwright, Athletics Director Terry Mahajer, and the entire university community. Can't wait to be in FBC Mortgage Stadium on Saturday, September 30th for the Knights' first Big 12 Conference home football game against Baylor. So Brett Yormark will be in attendance for the UCF Baylor game. You can read more on this at UCFKnights.com.
When they play Zombie Nation, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, listen. Brett Yormark is nothing if not a total pro. I don't know if he'll jump around, but he'll be enjoy. I'm thinking he'll enjoy the experience. We're certainly going to do our best to give him a great experience over here.
Jeff, we're upstairs on a regular basis, and even then, it still feels. It's funny, you're in the stands. I was a season ticket holder from 2007 to 2016. People jump around there, and you feel it one way, but then you feel it in the tower, and it's actually a lot more. I don't want to say uncomfortable, but it's a lot weirder in the tower than it is in the stands. It's just because you can feel it. You can feel it going on in the tower. And it's just, it's unique. It's unique. And eventually one day they're going to have to replace it with something else because the stadium only has a projected 50-year lifespan before they have to rebuild it. That was always the plan. Makes me wonder, are they going to rebuild it similar or are they going to do something different when it's time?
I'm not even worried about all that right now. I'm just still in awe.
That's a question for
This is
day.
Such a fantastic quote from Lonely Bumblebee on our YouTube chat. I can't wait to tell my first G5 team to join a better conference.
See, I can't do that.
No.
Yeah, you live in this world long and in the lower half world long enough. It's like I can't do that.
Do not become the thing you swore to destroy.
Well, you know what? Yeah,
never be like that. But I grew up
me
in a
too.
state country, and I still wouldn't do that.
I'll say I forget who put it out, but you remember when UCF sent the video of Terry Mahajer actually sending the letter of application to the Big 12, like the email attachment. And somebody jumped in there and said, wait a minute, that was really all we had to do was just send an email?
Hey, man, COVID was a game changer. You can put it in an email.
I was like, wow, that's right on the money. That's all we had to do is just send an email with a PDF attached to it.
Where's this been?
What took us so long?
All we had to do was ask.
Oh my! All we had to do was ask.
It was that easy.
So easy
Matt-
a caveman can do it.
Our buddy Matt Brodsky said, already saw a why didn't you join the ACC today? Oh boy, yeah, here we go.
Do you mean today is in the last 17 minutes?
Hey, all I know is that if the ACC keeps going the way it's going, they may end up joining us. That's all I know.
What's left of it? Once it's picked clean.
So, all right. And to sign it, tap on all the traffic lights in it. That's right. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here on a historic night for UCF, and also let's give a shout out to Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, also joining the league with us.
Hours for a couple of them. It's not midnight for them yet.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's the BYU
They
folks
still got some waiting to do.
Mountain time, right? Houston and Cincinnati. Cincinnati's in.
Cincinnati's in Eastern. I said two.
Are you really asking if Cincinnati's not in the Eastern time zone?
Yes, I am asking that.
Yeah, they're in the Eastern time zone.
Okay. I always thought Ohio was in the Central time zone.
Oh God, no.
No?
Time zones don't make sense, Jeff.
I think
I don't know why I always
the cut line is I think the cut line is Indiana, up in
It's
that part of the
Right.
country.
Indiana
Right.
has a separation. By the time you get to Chicago, you're in the Central time zone.
And isn't there like a county in Indiana that doesn't observe it?
I think it's Indianapolis.
Yeah. So, wow. Guys, I tell you, it's really been something. I thank all of you for joining me tonight. I thank everyone who hopped on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, joined us for this moment. Really appreciate everyone who dropped in all the amazing comments, hilarious, great questions. It's really something. And like I said, for a lot of us old hats, we've been waiting for this day for a long, long time, and for it to happen is just remarkable. I can't wait for that for football season to start. I can't wait for that first Big 12 game. You guys know, I mean, I might fall out of the window in the press box. I don't know. It's a moment that we've all been dreaming of, and when something like that finally happens, I'll tell you, it's really something. And last word from our friend Eric Edwards: will there be tears and chills of joy versus Baylor? Hell yeah, there will.
And there are probably a lot of Knights fans at home that are going to experience that watching the Kansas State game.
Yeah, but I think it's really going to hit us when we have that home game, that first home game. And man, I'm looking for that. I'm looking forward to that place being 2018 versus Cincinnati level nuts. That's what I'm looking forward to. So, all right, let's go around the horn real quick. We'll start with Nick. Nick, where can people find you on your socials?
At Nick Porcelli 2 on Twitter.
All right. Andrew Sagona.
You can find me on Damn Frijoles, or if you want to follow my professional writer Twitter account, it's Andrew_Sagona.
All right. Andrew Glukov.
If you haven't blocked me already, it is Statboy Drew.
Fair. Bryson Turner.
You can follow me on Twitter at It's Bryson Turner, where I've been breaking down the transfers of the latest of the baseball and softball transfers, which have been quite active as of late. Yep.
And I'm at Jeff_Sharon, where you can find my latest work. I broke down the UCF men's basketball roster with all the incoming transfers and other personnel just recently. And we're also running through, as all of our Big 12 friends are joining us, we're running through the top athletes in UCF history and the top coaches in UCF history, male and female. We're going to be doing one of those each day. And Bryson, also later this month, the Bannies are coming up, the Black and Gold Banneret Awards. We will be revealing that as well. Thanks to all of our friends who sent in some comments. Matt Brodsky, Eric Edwards, Lonely Bumblebees out there. Shout out also to earlier today. who said? Oh, Jessica Sheldon also got us going early. Wow, just an awesome night. And you know what, folks? We're just getting started. Here we come. UCF is in the Big 12 Conference. For all of us here at KnightShift and the Black and Gold Banneret, Andrew, thank you for being our special guest tonight. Always good to see you. When are we going to see you back on campus again?
I'll be there for the first football game, and I'm actually going to that block party this morning, this afternoon.
That's right. There is a block party at Burger U today, noon to 6. I'm going to try and be there. Go grab some lunch, say hi to everybody. So hopefully I'll see you guys. Hopefully I'll see you there. And hopefully those of us who are following, I'll see all you guys there. So thanks to everybody. We witnessed history tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been a privilege to join it. And we're only going to see more history coming our way as UCF is now in the Big 12 Conference. Believe it, folks. It's happened. Until then, go Knights, charge on. We'll see you tomorrow.